I haven't watched the whole thing, you guys. I haven't watched the whole thing. But so far, it's so Hollywood bullshit. I know he's actually based in New York, but he's part of media, right? Um, I'm so not in the mood for this either because I just had the white trash family show up to the pool again, and they coached one of their kids to yell up, Jenna, come outside. Jenna, come outside. I don't know what kind of white trash bullshit you guys are doing, but you should not be coaching your kids to become creepers. Oh my God, even. I made some brats tonight. They're still there, by the way. And in a previous year, when I was doing a live stream, this is not a live stream, this is a screen cap. But in a previous year, when I was doing a live stream talking about the bullshit they were doing, they started watching it while they were at the pool and commenting loudly while I was doing it. These people are fucking stalker, crazy creepers who are abusing their kids. But anyway, okay, let me get back to the subject matter. I'm not going to do the whole bullshit here. I'm just going to get to the point where Sam just, oh, God damn, Sam. I mean, it's bad enough that you don't know anything about California politics and you seem to want to comment on it. But, I mean, I can't say whether or not he knows about national politics or New York politics or whatnot. But I can tell you he doesn't know a damn thing about what's going on in California. Anyway, let's get to this.
In a narrow perspective, and I guess to a certain extent I'm talking specifically about TYT. A lot of stuff went down. I'm still sort of catching up on this. The last I had heard was, or read was like Anna's tweet, like, I don't know, was like...
On this, can you explain, Sam, what we're talking about here? Are we talking about transphobic statements from your friends over at TYT? Can we say specifically what happened here about how there's some transphobia going on with your buddies?
2 months ago or something, or whatever that was.
3 months.
And let me, be clear on a couple of things. Because, I don't want to spend too much time on this.
Right.
But there, Em obviously came from TYT. She has a different set of relationships over there. I don't really make...
That explains a lot.
A lot of friends in this business, in part because I'm just a standoffish person. But also part of it is that, like, when I was in comedy...
No, what that means is that you're unwilling to stick your neck out for a marginalized community that doesn't represent your own interests, your own identity, right? So if they don't, if they have a set of problems that don't affect you personally, you don't really want to do much about that, right?
There was always this story that I had read about this group of comedians in the, God, I can't remember what the name of this crew of comedians was called at the time, but Alexi Sales is one of them. He wasn't even one of the better comedians in my estimation of that crew, like Rowan Atkinson and I don't know, a bunch of others like there in the late 80s. But he had this thing where he said, like, the worst thing about success is that you become friends with Phil Collins and then you can't really be honest about how bad his music is. You can't make fun of his...
Why is this a problem? Why can't you be honest with Phil Collins and say, I really didn't like Susu Sudia? Why is this a problem for you, Sam? Why can't you be like, yeah, you're a really talented drummer, you have a great voice, but the music writing kind of sucked ass, right? Like, you can't be honest with people because what you're afraid that, like, you're afraid, like, if you say, well, you're not really my favorite artist. I'm not totally into your music. It doesn't quite work for me. You can't fucking say these things. You can't be like, you know what, you have some talents that are amazing. You are a rock legend. I'm just not feeling your music though. Like, I totally would have been able to do that, Sam. Like, be an honest dude, please.
Music. And I know it's a weird thing, a weird quote to remember for over 35 years. But that has stuck with me. So when people like say like, you're not talking about Anna or Jank or this and that because of friendships, I can assure you that is not the case. I mean, I have nothing against Anna, but I've never been friends with her. Like, I haven't been non-friends with her. Like, I think I've spoken to her once, maybe. I don't know, in person. For me, the issue is this. Why what they're doing is wrong, and I don't know why they're doing what they're doing. But with this, let me just put it in contrast to like why I do this and why I think everybody here does this. We do this here because of the politics first. And then, I don't know what the percentage is, but I realize, like, we have to be entertaining, and I like being entertaining, and it's fun in that regard, and this and that, and you can't be just, and I don't even have the mental capacity to just...
What does that even mean? We do that because of the politics first? What kind of politics? Office politics? Politics in media? Actual progressive politics? Because it certainly isn't that. If you're unwilling to stand up for the values that we're fighting for, then it's certainly not progressive politics. You are so full of shit. This is why I don't watch your show anymore. I tried to watch a live streamer this morning cover your addressing of the TYT situation. And I got an hour and 5 minutes in, and she still hadn't actually gotten to this clip. And so I left a comment and I said, you know what, this is ridiculous. I don't remember exactly what I wrote. I was just like, basically like, are you kidding me? I am an hour and 5 minutes in, and I still haven't seen the content that you advertised. Like, there are so many bullshit people out there talking progressive politics, and I really feel like the two of you are some of them.
Doing like, 3 hours of dry interviews. Mm-hmm. But the point is that what dictates what we do here? And I remember like years and years ago, I would get arguments with a caller, like I shouldn't refer to what we do here as propaganda. Propaganda to me has always been a value neutral term. It is when you have an ideology or a set of issues that you're promoting or whatever it is, you are putting out content in it with an eye to that. I think like, you could argue that in some way, like all media is propagandistic in the sense that someone's making an editorial decision. Even what they deem to be newsworthy is making an editorial decision. The point being is that we are living in an era right now, which is undeniable, where the right wing, there's been plenty of reporting about this, the Republican Party, the right wing, the conservative movement, all of those things, there's not a lot of daylight between any of those things, specifically was shopping around for something to motivate its fundamentalist base. Mm-hmm. And fall in the wake of gay marriage not causing typhoons and dogs and cats falling from the sky, they came upon transphobia. And the way that it ended up playing out was in the context of it dovetailed with some schooling issues and CRT and keeping people home from school and this and that, which not to imply that this is something that's incredibly novel, but in terms of its growth, it is quite clear what's going on here. There's a concerted effort to do this. You do not spend $50 million in a campaign in Michigan on trans issues unless there is a concerted effort to do that. So that's one reality that lives, that exists right there. And the other reality may be that in your mind, you have an issue with what goes on in women's sports. I'm just going to stipulate that, I'm just going to say that's sincere, that you really care about women's sports, okay? And you have some really thoughtful or even non-thoughtful ideas about what should happen in women's sports.
Why do I feel like this is going to totally go the wrong direction? Sam, you do understand that trans women on the gender spectrum, oh, fuck's sake, they may or may not be the same size as an average woman. It's entirely possible they're taller and have more muscle mass. It's entirely possible that they might be at somewhere around 5'5". You don't know. You can't make that determination. Okay? I remember reading an article about how if you want to call them biological women, who were Olympic athletes, were actually disqualified because they naturally had too much testosterone in their system. And it was just how they were born. It's not up to you to make these determinations. And so if you're going in the direction of trying to defend Anna and Shank, this is not going to bode well for you at all.
If you do what we do here, which is what is going to help not immiserate a specific group of people, or what is going to mitigate doing that, or how do we protect those people? Mm-hmm. Even if you believe deep down, like I feel very strongly about, women's sports.
Right.
Which, people can be a little skeptical of that case in some instances, but regardless, no, I'm sure there's some.
They can't.
It is incumbent upon you, you don't have to speak about it. Because it is contributing to an environment that is wreaking violence on a group of people in our society who have very little political or material protection. And that's just the reality of it. There is no excuse. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm not going to shut up about my opinions. It is incumbent upon you, and it's acutely problematic if this is the biggest online left of center outlet that exists.
Yeah. And I will say that if you do choose to speak about it, which I think I have in particular, I will go further and say I think it's incumbent upon you, if you are a part of the left, to be militant in support of trans activists, because I think the excuse that's given is that this is a wedge issue and not conceding the point that...
Don't you dare. Don't you dare call this a wedge issue. It's a human rights issue, Emma. I literally sat on a PDA leadership call in which one of the leaders of a chapter in San Fernando Valley called reproductive rights a wedge issue. That is also a human rights issue. Be an ally, for fuck's sake.
somebody might have a different muscle structure if they're a trans person, blah, 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 is helping the right. I don't agree with that at all, actually. I think conceding the framing is much more helpful to the right than being an advocate. I think being an advocate, you're providing a counter narrative for a wedge issue that is being used cynically by the right, not being brought up by the leftist activists or the trans activists. They're responding to it with protection. It's inverted.
You are 1 degree away from Anna at this point by calling it a wedge issue, because that's literally their fucking argument, is that this is not important enough for us to argue because it just divides people, right? You are not helping us right now. This is, I can't even with you guys. It is a human rights issue, Emma. How can the two of you be so goddamn ignorant?
But focus.
But even that, like, first off, we can see data. We can see data, and we know how this plays in elections.
We saw it in this last midterms. Yeah.
Now, you can show me a poll that says...
Oh my god, they're like basically agreeing with TYT, you guys. This is so bad. This is so bad.
People don't want, trans women to play in women's sports. But I can also show you a poll that 75% of people want gun control. If you want to come and say that this is an electoral issue, come with data.
Wow.
I can show you a poll that MLK had a 25% approval rating at the time of his death. I mean, we can't just be fighting for what's popular in the moment, because then you're saying that you can't change the framing around that.
But even if you're saying it's popular in the moment, like it's not resonating from an electoral standpoint. That's why I think
this is from 3 days ago. We are in 2023. And these two people are so goddamn ignorant about politics and so backwards about human rights issues. They are right there with TYT, you guys. This is so bad.
That is
granted too much of the anti-trans.
Exactly.
Right.
Like, I think that is a bullshit excuse.
They aren't the post.
Because you would lead with that, okay? As much as we heard, like, it's one thing to say, like, I don't think, defund the police is the most artful slogan there is. But to harp on it, you're just doing the work.
I'm sorry, who's leading with this? Are we putting forward the legislation right now? No. Are the transgender activists, the actual activists, not just like all transgender people, but... Or even the Democratic Party or any of the LGBTQIA activists being the ones trying to advance legislation in this regard? No. We're actually fighting against legislation that is being put forth by the GOP. And here you are calling it a wedge issue. Don't worry about it. You were literally doing the same goddamn thing as the Young Turks right now. That's terrible. Oh my god. You guys are bad.
Of what it turned out to be the corporate Democrats who wanted an excuse for why they were going to lose their elections, as opposed to the reality of the whole thing.
Yeah.
In fact, that does help corporate Democrats. It's a good point.
And it's very hard for me to believe.
How did you tie it? You're like, well, this is a subject that I'm not comfortable with. So therefore, I'm going to blame the Democratic Party for it. Okay, all right.
Well, let me put it this way. It's incumbent upon people who do what we do to be able to make that assessment. And that is being like, I have no idea what's going on over there. I'm not in contact with anybody over there.
Right.
And,
but you're taking the same position as them. You're literally taking the same position as them. So, I canceled you guys like months ago. I was like, holy shit, these people are fucking ignorant. But this just doubles down. This doubles down.
speculation and conjecture is no more informed, probably less so, than, people in this audience. But in terms of what I think is a responsibility and where a bar lies, while we're at it, in terms of the affirmative action thing, if anybody, including Jank, thinks that, black people are going to get more respect now in colleges because there's no affirmative action, you're insane. That's absurd.
Yeah, I mean, to put it as succinctly as possible, there's a finite number of things that we can focus on. Matt says that quite a bit. And I think it's incredibly important in our industry to focus on the things that are going to make sure that there are as much protections as humanly possible for trans people, for marginalized communities in this country. And I believe that focusing on the language of activists that are on the margins and that are incredibly anecdotal is in fact serving a far right agenda.
100%.
Yeah.
And it is.
Wait, I'm sorry. Did I hear that correctly? Oh my god. I don't know if I could watch this whole thing because you guys are so fucking ignorant. Like, do you even know transgender people in your life? Because I do. And not all of them are activists, but many of them are, because that happens to be the world that I sort of live in. And the fact that you are being so dismissive, just like TYT, shame on you. Shame on you.
Really problematic to have the biggest center of left, I don't know where you want to put them or where they would put themselves on some type of spectrum, whatever.
Progressives, home and progressives is the title.
I mean, it's a problem.
Yeah, and that's not just the two of them.
You guys are such idiots. The GOP has come after this particular marginalized community specifically. Okay? And if you're progressives, then you should be saying, hey, we stand strong with them. But instead you're like, I'm sorry, this is a distraction for me. Right? But you know what? I've gotten that take from all of your news productions, that you really don't want to do any sort of deep dives and actually understand the subject matter of what's really happening. That's why it's hard for me to believe that Sam Cedar is supposedly some sort of debate wizard. Who's the mayor of Los Angeles, Sam? You remember? Do you remember? Do you remember our progressive wins? Do you remember who we got in on city council and other city positions? Do you remember these things? You guys are so fucking superficial. Trans people deserve human rights, and they are being attacked by the GOP. Okay? And what you, Emma, Anna, and Cenk are doing is dismissing the fact that they're being attacked. And that's some fucking bullshit.
And I work there, I want to say, right? Like, there are a lot of great people that work in TYT. A lot of great people who are leftists and progressives that I don't think want to be associated with this.
Right. I mean, but without like even getting into like the internal politics there, that's for people to suss out themselves. I have always had both a tremendous amount of respect for people who say, like, I don't like this work environment, and I'm going to do whatever I can to reverse it. And if part of that means I'm going to quit this job and I'm going to do it in a public way, I mean, we've begged people to do that during the course of like the Iraq War and whatnot. Certainly there was a ton of that, with the I mean, I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. I also understand, because of the nature of the society we live in, that there may be people there who are like, whatever it is, the job that I do here is not terribly easily replicated somewhere else. And this is a time of contraction with these things. And, I've got college loans because I just, bought a house or I've got a car payment or whatever it is. I also, have a tremendous amount of sympathy and understanding for people in that situation. The bottom line is there are, prominent voices that run that network or that project out that network. And it is wrong of them to be playing nuance. And this is, I'm trying to be charitable here, playing nuance with an issue that is so clearly drummed up to inflict pain on people. They're hoping for.
Oh my God, that's exactly what they are saying, Sam. How are you helping in this situation? You're literally reaffirming their position.
Electoral gain. I don't think they'll necessarily get the electoral gain, although it strengthens, if I'm in a red state and I can pass a law, I'm going to stay in office. It's not necessarily going to, impact Joe Biden's reelection. It's not even going to impact in the purple districts. I think it cuts against them in the purple districts.
And standing up for trans rights might get young Gen Z people out more than turning small people on the margins to vote Democrat.
Again, there's this is not a data first argument that people are making. And all the morons who've been making a data first argument, they had to end up reversing themselves anyways on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, so I only acknowledge it because I want to say that I think that is a red herring and a bullshit excuse.
And if leftist critique causes you to change your worldview or adjust your approach that drastically, that is definitionally reactionary.
Well, I heard this from Dave Rubin and how mean leftists were and that they left him. And listen, if you're doing any type of show like this, you're going to hate everybody. Not that I should hate, I don't think there's any value in everybody hating you or not, whatever.
It means you're doing something right.
You're going to hate everybody because people are going to be rude and think that and for it to alter your perspective and your analysis as to who is marginalized, who is in danger, what's going to provide the greatest amount of relief.
Wow, that's quite a pivot, you guys. You literally just called it a wedge issue that we shouldn't really pay attention to and make a big deal about, right? You guys are so full of shit.
Help, support, material gain for the greatest amount of people, then you should be in a different business to begin with. But also, give me an effing break. There is no doubt in my mind that if we were sitting here and we're doing a right-wing show, I wouldn't be considered an asshole, and I would get invited on places, and I would be going and hanging out and skateboarding and eating sushi and this and that, the warm embrace of these people. Again, what is that? Mr. Death? Was it Mr. Death? The
Errol
Morris
documentary.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Mr. Beast.
No, Mr. Death. This is a guy who's a lonely guy who was a consultant for states when they would kill people with capital punishment. Mm-hmm. And somebody, some Holocaust deniers, he had said something like the effect of I find it hard to believe they could have used Zyklon B. And he became completely embraced by the Holocaust denying Nazi community and became just was living it up.
Yeah.
They were so much nicer to him.
They stayed for sushi. He stayed for sushi and bubble tea.
Stayed for sushi and bubble tea. And that is not a measure of the way you look at humanity. And that should not be a dictate as to what you express publicly. If you've got a job where you are public facing, it is incumbent upon you to think about the implications of your words. And just like
Yeah,
when,
it is.
you know, I celebrate the deaths of people who I think, like when Scalia dies, I'm like, yeah, good. He may have been a good father, good son, good brother, good, husband.
Not my problem.
That's not the issue.
Yeah.
I know this guy's name because of what he's done to the country. Same thing with Breitbart. Go on and on. You are judged by what you put out there. Period. End of story. Doesn't matter what's in your heart. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, I could be the most right-wing guy in the world. I could, if I go home and I have like a Hitler closet that I go into and pray every night, but I come out and I say things that are anti-fascist during the day. I'll take that versus the guy who's going back and saying pure of heart, but coming out and because of nuances. Hitler had some good ideas. Trains ran on time and people were happy with the efficiency. That's not the way it works. What you put out is what you get judged on. Not what's in your heart. None of that.
Not what you're maybe capable of.
Not what you're capable. None of that. What you put out into the world, when you do this, that's what you get judged on. Period. We are two-dimensional.
Yeah. And that's why we don't stay, and this isn't about personal branding or anything, why we don't, it would have been, that's why we don't stay for sushi and bubble tea, basically. It's because we actually believe in this. I really do believe in this, so much so that I'm, uncomfortable about talking about.
Oh, this wedge issue, right, Emma? The wedge issue? Really believe in it, right? You guys are totally serious about this? The wedge issue?
This on air, but I just think it's important to counteract it, obviously. So this, trans solidarity with Benny, who resigned from TYT. Seriously.
Wow.